So we're taking this opportunity here toward the end of convention to have just a fairly brief, informal chat so you get to know Celina a little more as she transitions into a new role. So I just have a few questions for her so she can share some of her thoughts. So Celina, you've been with the League for a while now.
A little bit.
What inspired you to take on the role of CEO, and what does that mean to you?
First, can I say, these are nice.
These are nice.
This is nice. So I would have to say that it was a little bit of a spiritual journey that I fought. I have been telling my friends for a couple of years now, because I have had conversations. I have a group of people, Black executive folks that I meet with and just kind of brainstorm and have a safe space. I have been telling them, I don't want to be no CEO. That is not my ministry. And I started to pray because I wasn't sure what my next was. I'm always a person who plans 5 years ahead. Like, what's the next 5 years look like? What's the next 10 years look like? And I started to really pray. And I said, God, tell me what next is. Just tell me what the title of the role is or where I'm going. And he said, not yet. And me being the disrespectful heathen that people are sometimes, I was like, what do you mean? I have given 6 years. What is my next? I have a contribution to the world still. And I just kept hearing not yet. And then earlier this year, I had this dream, and there was nothing but signs. I would walk by a store and it said, apply here, help wanted, apply here. And so I woke up, I was like, why did I have this dream about all these apply signs? That is so strange. And so I said, oh God, no. When I woke up, I was like, that cannot be what you're telling me to do. And so I didn't apply right off the bat.
Okay.
I actually waited a little while. And I would say that some of the influence also came from staff and board and some of you who asked me whether or not I would. And so I said, you know what? I'll apply. Perhaps God is putting me in touch with a recruiter who's gonna find my next. I was fighting. I think I was fighting this a little bit. And as I went through the process, I think the process itself really helped me realize and crystallize that I have a vision for the League. I have a vision for what I want our work to look like. I have a vision for what I think we're capable of. And so much of it comes, you all make it very easy. Well, not easy, but there are times when it is very easy because of the extraordinary work that you all do that Dianna mentioned. And so our work at the national office is somewhat easy in the fact that we get to rely on the tremendous work that you all do to help us achieve our mission, because all of us are part of it and we all have roles, but it's really the people in communities doing the work, interfacing with the folks within the community that make this thing work. And so as I went through the process, went to the last round, and I got the call, and I was like, what? When I heard that the board unanimously,
absolutely, yes.
Put my name forward, and I was trying to scream, and I couldn't. And so the first thing I did is I called my mom. I was like, you didn't give me enough opportunities to scream, because I don't even know how to do it anymore. All I want to do is scream, and I don't know how to do it. And so my mom and I had a heart-to-heart, and she said, I think this is exactly where you're supposed to be because of what you've done, because of the signs and signals that the universe is giving you, and because even though you didn't know it when you started, you do have a really clear vision for what you want to do. And so that's how I got here.
Well, we're so thrilled.
Thank you.
That you did end up applying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
So Celina actually officially starts as CEO first week of August. So I would imagine at this point, you're thinking very short term about the initial things you need to do and just getting us through the election.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you to think just a little longer term. What do you think the fight for democracy looks like over the next decade?
Okay.
We're getting groans.
Does someone want to come to the mic, the pro-con mic? So I think that's complicated. But the answer is really easy in terms of, I think the league is going to have a role. The league is certainly going to be center. I think the league is going to have a role. I think that our name is going to continue to be a household name. I think that we're going to continue to build trust in communities. I think we're going to tackle communities that we have never tackled and worked with, not because they come to us, because we understand that we have to go to them. We have to understand that we are going to the people who are impacted, because so often the league has this privilege of being at tables because of how long we've been around and how trusted we are. But part of our power is making sure that we are the person at the table who says, who is missing? And how do we leverage our networks to bring those people to the table as decision makers and not observers? And so I think that is a role that we will play. But I also think that we're going to kick ass. We're going to kick ass at the polls and with Vote for 1-1. Thank you, Jeanette, for all the work that you have done to bring that forward. Bringing people in through Vote for 1-1 has been tremendous, but also the work that we have done in recent years in actually tracking turnout. One of the efforts that has been done by the team is our postcard campaign and making sure that not only are we giving people information, go to Vote for 1-1, register to vote, et cetera, but then sending them a postcard and saying, are you going to show up? Because what really matters is the day of election and those days prior to election when we have to cast a ballot and have an outcome. And so when I think about the next 10 years, I think our work is only going to be amplified. I hope, and we are working, I think, collectively to make sure we have enough people. Because last night I was having a conversation, and I'm sorry, Debbie from Florida, if you're still here, I'm going to call you out a little bit. Oh, she is in the back, okay. So Debbie and I were talking, and I was like, well, they were saying that, we're going to transition at some point. I said, okay, transitions happen. And she was just like, I'm going to retire. And I said, are you going to actually retire? She said, well, I'm retired now, and I work about 50 hours. I was like, that is not retire. You're failing. And she said, I am failing at retirement. And I was just like, with more people, my hope is that we can continue to do amazing work, but with more people, we're not working 50 and 60 hours as volunteers. When we look at the, yes, see, people are clapping. They want to. When we look at just the sheer amount of volunteer hours that this organization contributes, it rivals top global law firms in this country. That's insane. And so I think that we have to increase our volunteer force in order to be fully effective. And so that's one of the things that will occur and is a byproduct of transformation and moonshot. And so we will need all of us as experts to help train, mentor the new people who are coming in. But I definitely see the league at the center of this fight for the next 10 years and hopefully 90, because we've got another century of work at least to do.
Thanks, Celina. So the next question I want to ask, kind of hesitated because we could talk probably all day about this, but we just have a few minutes. You, of course, have been litigating cases and serving as our chief counsel in the fight for democracy. So what are your thoughts on the current Supreme Court and decisions that we've been receiving that impact elections and voting rights and other rights?
Eric in the back, is this recorded for public consumption? No, right. It's just for our folks. So it's a few things. I have to be careful because we have a lot of cases before the Supreme Court, right? And so we don't ever want to do anything that would jeopardize any state's federal case. But what I will say is that I've noticed a few things. So I'll just say what I have noticed. I have noticed that Chief Justice Roberts has thrown some surprises. There are cases like Moore v. Harper that me, Karen, and Thomas often have bets about how this is going to go in Supreme Court, and it gets pretty intense. But for Moore v. Harper, I suspected that it could be a positive outcome for us. And the reason why I did is because I get the sense, based on just the history of decisions that are led by Justice Roberts, Chief Justice, he's trying to protect a legacy. He's at the stage in his career where I don't know when he's going to exit or if he's planning to exit, but he's just the way he's moving lets me know that he's creating a legacy plan. And so I think that that is going to throw some curveballs a little bit. Where those curveballs happen, I don't know. And then we have right now a court that has become increasingly political, the most political within its history. And there is unprecedented things happening. Like just last week, there was a leak, another leak with the Supreme Court. Dobbs was the first, EMTALA is now the second. This never happens. And I heard some commentary on the news that, perhaps someone just, someone new, perhaps just shared something accidentally. No. The Supreme Court has such robust protocols of protection. Even the metadata and how that is done is so specific. And so I don't know what's going on over there at the Supreme Court, but I do know that I think that they are somewhat embattled in trying to figure out their role as a political court, which is what they are becoming and emerging into. And I think that that's gonna change how we show up. And it's part of the reason why I think the judicial study is so important, because we have a Congress and a presidency position, but we have no position around the federal judiciary. Perhaps that was because we thought that the court would always be independent, but we are quickly realizing that that will not always be true and is not true now. And so in my world, because we have so many leagues engaging in federal litigation, 150 cases across 36 states, we have to be able to push back if this court continues to go in the direction of being a political court. And so, again, I don't know, if I could get into the minds, it would hopefully make things clear, because some things I'm just like, what the heck was that? But those are the notes that I will put forward on the Supreme Court that I think I'm okay putting out into the ether.
Right.
For right now.
And maybe that's something for a longer conversation.
Right.
At some point. And given the state of the court and for so long, at least we had that recourse.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And now we can't necessarily trust that we can go to the courts if we don't get what we want in other ways, which brings me to another question. Women have been at the forefront for the fight for voting rights and other rights. Really, since the founding of this nation, we're talking literally centuries. What do you think is let me make the connection here. If we can't necessarily trust that at least we can go to the courts, and we have to look at our other options, right. What do you think the role of women in particular is in fighting for voting rights, defending and advancing democracy, really long term? Mm-hmm. We've been doing it long term, but over the next 100 years for the League and for women in general.
So you're right. I think women, we talked about this a little bit on Thursday for the folks who were able to join or watch and listen to the panel. But women have always been around. we didn't just pop up, right? So we've been around. It's just that there have been spaces where we were navigating behind the curtain, is how I say. But I think that some of the discomfort, maybe, is that women are coming from behind the curtain and have been for decades to be frontline folks for a lot of the issues that are in this country. And I think that that is a great thing, because we have always, or I'll speak for myself and my particular family, which I think may be representative of some, the Black mothers, my Black mother, and Black mothers that I am familiar with, my aunts, sister friends, et cetera, they have always carried families, communities, and so much on their shoulders and didn't get credit for it. Yes, ma'am. I don't know who that was, but yes, ma'am. And so I think that the narrative has to change, but I think that's part of the reason why work like the organizing team led by Alma is so important. Because as we see courts becoming more political, the dysfunction of Congress, and all of this craziness going on around the country, what we have seen still works is activism and pushing back on power. There's an expression, and it's escaping me who says it, but power is never given. It has, who? Thank you, my great uncle, I should know that. But we have to take it, and especially when it is in response to oppression or suppression. And so I think that for women in particular, and the grassroots movement generally, showing up, showing out, putting pressure, because when I think about No More Excuses, the rally that we did in DC, it was just 10, how many people was it, Alma, at that first rally? It wasn't a lot, maybe 100 people, and then by the end of it, we had hundreds of people. And we showed up every week in front of the White House with signs. And I will never forget this moment when one of our sisters in faith, she was wearing her, I won't say it's not uniform, I don't know what the exact, her habit.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was being arrested, it was taken off. And there was a picture all over the internet that surfaced, that went around, showing her arrest and them taking off. To me, in that moment, that motivated so many people, like, we got to get out here in front of this White House. And it was at that moment that we started to gain traction in the press room. So the White House press briefing, someone asked, do you all hear those people outside who are protesting? Is the White House going to do anything about that? So it forced them to address a situation that they wanted to ignore. And so to me, even now, leveraging the power of our grassroots, our activism, leveraging organizing and the important work that is done through Alma's team is critical. The other piece of that is being able to speak about it. When we go out and protest, people will see us, but another component of that is communicating to the world why we are out there and what we are doing. And so I think an effective communication strategy, and that's something that we're going to have to get stronger about at League. I think that we are so smart, we have so many intelligent, intellectual, brilliant people, but thinking through not only activism, but how do we communicate what we are doing to the world is going to be critical.
So we've been talking really about the fight for democracy that's ahead and Celina's thoughts on that. But her role as CEO in this organization is really very complex because we've got an important election coming up. Of course, we look long-term in the fight for democracy, doing all of that, and we're on a transformation journey internally.
Yeah.
So we have, our mission impact, our external work, but then the internal work that we're very committed to. Now, earlier, I talked about the need for a bigger, bolder, and more powerful league. Can you speak to how you think the transformation work can get us to that more powerful organization?
Yeah. So I had someone come up to me, I won't say what state, but she came up to me, she was relatively young, I think under 35, and she said, I want to join my local league, but they said I have to write a check. And I was like, just to clarify, are you saying that you don't know what a check is, or are you just confused that you have to use a check? I wanted to understand. Because my niece, who's 23, has no idea. She's like, what is a check, and why would y'all write checks to pay bills when you can just do all these things? I was like, because we didn't have all of that. But I think about her very innocent question, very relevant question. And I think as we continue to engage in communities, we have to find ways to make it easier for people to come in and lower the barriers to do so. And so I think as part of the transformation, it's that membership piece, not only attracting people, because I think we're going to attract people by the work that we are doing. The really pivotal piece is when people are interested in coming in, how do they do so in a way that they can pay, come right into the organization and become involved? And so I think the transformation is an important piece because I think it helps us get at some of that. And I also think that it helps us more accessible for people who may not have access to the league. And I still think it gives us enough flexibility to think about how we do this futuristically, because what we roll out initially, that may not be the same in 5 years. We may discover that in this process we have to make adjustments. And I think sometimes we get caught up on, we're gonna do this thing, it's never gonna change, it's gonna be hard, it's gonna be tough. But I just wanna say, if you all knew the amount of work and thoughtfulness that Ayo and Nora think about when thinking about chapter spot, they're just like, what is gonna work best for leagues? We know it's not gonna be perfect. We know we're not gonna have a one size fits all, but can we make it easier? And so, again, I think that this is going to take all of us to pull it off. It is not just a national thing. It's not just state. It's not just local. We have to come together and agree that it's important for us to get members in here and remove barriers for them. And if we can do that, then I think the how and all the logistical pieces will figure itself out. Is that what you wanted? You're giving me this.
Well, I don't want you to tell me what I want to hear.
What do you want to hear, Dianna?
Well, you addressed it. I mean,
Okay.
we know that it is challenging work, but it is necessary work. And there are likely to be some hiccups along the way, and we'll work through those. And I think that on the other side of it, it's going to work out, and we're going to be able to achieve our objectives with it. And that's just a piece of that's just a piece
I'm
of
just talking about the piece that
transformation.
people always come to me about. There are definitely other pieces, for sure.
Right, and that's more of a kind of a short-term piece. Our transformation journey, is much longer term beyond that. But thank you. We still have some final order of business. Remember the direction of the board. So I just have one more closing question for Celina, so we can wrap up on time. There's a common saying, and I hope that I'm saying it just right, that you leave the world better than how you found it. You leave the world better than how you found it. How do you think we, not just you and me, but we can leave the league in a better condition and leave democracy better than how we have found it?
I think I need to nerd out for just a second. Do you all know where that this is a camping ethic rule? I didn't realize that until I started saying it maybe 5, 10. Yes, thank you. But being an attorney, we are bound by so many ethical obligations, fiduciary duties, how to treat people's money, making sure you know stuff, all these things. So when I learned that this came back to ethics, I was quite surprised. I was a little surprised. So anyway, in the camping world, you're using national parks and all these things. It takes an incredible effort to keep these parks clean and all these things. So you go camp, you do your thing, and then your responsibility is to clean up after yourself so that the next camper can come and do their thing. And so really when you think about this statement, it has two pieces. It has not doing harm and remediation. And so the not doing harm is don't do anything that's gonna intentionally or even unintentionally harm another. There's this lady, Tabitha Brown. She's a person who had all of these, some people know her good. She had all these ailments, and so she became she traced it back to her food, and she became a vegan and healed herself and all these things. But she has this expression that she says, she said, go and have a good day. But if you can't have a good day, don't mess up anyone else's. So I think that's what we're talking about when we say harm, because you may wake up and decide, I'm not gonna be a good Samaritan today. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do the right thing. But if other people decide to do that, let's let them be, right? So the second piece is remediation, which is if you arrive at a campsite and the camper before you left their cups or forgot to take the trash, that you're not gonna say, those people suck. They left their trash. You're gonna say, you know what? I didn't leave the trash, but I'm gonna pick it up because that's the right thing to do for the space that we're in and protecting all of us, right? And so when we talk about this expression, I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer, but I think if we keep in mind the two pieces that comprise of this, which is don't intentionally cause harm and remediate, and apply that to what we're doing, that it will help us go a long way, whether we are talking about voting, whether we are talking about inclusion, whether we are talking about our membership, whether we are talking about anything related to our work. Are we causing harm? And if we are, stop, do something else. And how do we remediate? Whether that's bringing people in, making sure voices are elevated, et cetera. So hopefully that's my quick and dirty of what that means to me and how it fits into our democracy.
I have to tell you, I mean, we're not going to cover any questions, but I want you to know, and some of the others, before yesterday, people were coming up to me. People I have relationships within the league, and they you know, because we know each other, would I give them the scoop on who the next CEO is? And you all are sitting here and you know who you are. That you that you wanted advance notice and they were trying to guess, and we did not give up the secret too soon. But I think that you saw by the reaction among leaguers when you were announced how thrilled we are that you are our next CEO, and how confident we are that you are going to take us well into the future as we continue to transform the league. So thank you, Celina, for spending some time here.
Thank you all.